Tuesday, the 12th of November 2024, and it is we will accordingly commence with our Standing Committee on Education meeting this afternoon. I wish to welcome all members and officials who are in attendance. And before we start our proceedings, I think I will just ask each of the members to introduce themselves. And then after that, we will go over to the department and ask the officials to introduce themselves there. So good afternoon. I'm Leon van Wyk, the chair of the Standing Committee on Education.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and colleagues. Wendy Case-Linda, member of the committee.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, colleagues and officials. I'm Member Boyson, a member of the committee.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Ferlin Christians, member of this committee.
Good afternoon, Chair. Aisha Kasim also present. Thank you.
Any more members to introduce themselves? Okay, we'll move over to...
Sorry, Thomas Walters, member of the committee.
Thank you, thank you. We will then move over to the officials, and I want to just table apologies that have been received from Minister Mania, who will not be able to attend this afternoon. And I see that DDG Bertram Lauriston is with us this afternoon. So good afternoon to you and your team. And if your team can then introduce themselves, please.
Good afternoon, Chair. Bertram Lauriston, DDG for Curriculum and Assessment. I'll ask then the Chief Director and the two directors to introduce themselves. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Juan Benjamin, the Chief Director for Curriculum Management and Teacher Development.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Don Hariprasad. I'm the Director for Curriculum FET, Further Education and Training. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Corin Dudley. I'm the Director for GET Curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm just turning on my camera for a moment here. And we today we have the department with us, the Western Cape Education Department, who are going to be briefing us on the progress being made on the various STEMAC programs, and also hopefully covering a little bit about the new industries or the new growth areas of data analysis and artificial intelligence that the business sector is also starting to look at, and hoping that our learners will also start incorporating courses in these fields within their offerings that they have on the into the employment market. So I think what I'm going to do is immediately hand over to DDG Bertram Lauriston and his team. But just before that, I think just for the record purposes, if the various officials could also just introduce themselves, I think starting with our procedural officer, Ms. Wasima Hassan Musa, who is obviously leading and guiding us in the education field. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Wasima Hassan Musa, Procedural Officer for the Standing Committee on Education.
Good afternoon, members.
Dan Daza, I'm the Senior Procedural Officer for the Standing Committee on Education. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. Sorry for locking in late. I was struggling with my laptop. I'm Member Stevens and I'm a member of this committee.
Thanks very much, Honourable Stevens, because I'd seen your little picture come up there, but certainly welcome to the committee meeting today. So I'm handing over to you, DDG.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and honourable members. I just want to introduce the team and how we're going to address get through the presentation today. I'm struggling with connectivity as well, but Mr. Juan Benjamin will then flight the presentation and also do the presentation on behalf of the WCED. But with us, we have Mr. Don Hariprasad, who is responsible for the FET Curriculum Delivery Unit, Director there, and then Ms. Karen Dudley, who is responsible for the GET. In that way, we will then cover whatever questions and comments you have. We will be able to then engage with that as well. So, Mr. Benjamin, over to you, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, DDG. I'm sharing the presentation. I just need confirmation that the presentation is visible.
It's visible and you're audible.
It's visible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Again, good afternoon to all the members of the committee, and thank you for the opportunity presented to us to brief the committee on the progress we're making inside the Western Cape Education Department in terms of implementing our focus on STEAMAC. So just to get to the format, I trust that members of the committee has received the presentation. We did make it available yesterday. And so I also accept that you would have had an opportunity to go through the presentation, which will cover those particular items from the introduction overview right to the concluding remarks at the end. And so there are some of the slides that are simply impacting slides just to show you the level of activity, and then we will pay attention to one or two of the slides and of course look forward to the opportunity to engage with any questions that may be asked at the conclusion of the slides. So the introduction and overview is informed in terms of the STEAMAC attention that we're giving to the STEAMAC subjects is aimed to address the fundamental problem of the misalignment between skills, demand and supply. We're all very aware of this. The latest Stats SA Q2 2024 report highlights the fact that young adults in the age group 15 to 24 that fall into the NEET category, which stands for not in employment, education and training, across the country standing at 44.2%. There's been an increase in comparison to Q1. We're also very aware that 8.3 million of our citizens are unemployed in the country in the Western Cape, based on the period report that was released in September of this year. Our general unemployment is standing at 22.2%. And of course, the unemployment rate for young graduates nationally is at 9.7%. On the basis of that stats, which has been coming on for a while, the Western Cape Education Department has been asked to respond to the critical shortage of skills and the misalignment between the job market and what our learning outcomes are producing in terms of skills and competencies in our learners. We are aiming to respond to this need in the changing labour market and provide learners with relevant skills and knowledge so that they too can make a meaningful contribution to the economy. And the focus for the Western Cape Education Department is on schools of specialisation, and we're using the term specialisation because there are a number of specialisation areas. The creative arts, for example, is one of those areas. The technical subjects, vocational and occupational subjects is another, and of course the academic stream is also an area of specialisation. And we see schools of specialisation as the vehicle that will serve the province in getting our learners, as they move into the next 5 to 10 to 15 years, developing the necessary skills and competence to be able to play an active role inside the economy. So in terms of the provincial landscape and the economic activities, just to give you a sense as a committee, what it is we are looking at, there is alignment between our thinking of what must happen in the basic public schooling system and what the economy and the demands of the economy in the Western Cape particularly are. And so one of the the background pieces of information that we're using coming out of the Growth for Jobs strategy is the focus on industrial development zones. They are familiar to you, I'm sure, because you do have exposure to these documents. And in terms of those areas, we are trying to create pipelines from within the schooling system that ultimately feed into those particular foci in terms of economic sectors, as well as align our schools of specialization to the areas, for example, that you see there from Saldanha right down to Oudtshoorn. Other information that we use is again coming out of our own economic data and the reports that Treasury is producing, is to look at how we are aligning the specialization areas that we wish to offer inside our schooling system with the high demand areas in terms of job creation and occupation. And this is not an exhaustive list. We just took the top 10 under very specific headings. And again, the committee is very familiar with the emphasis in this particular province, given the G4J strategy. And so we've looked at, in terms of agri-processing, what are those job opportunities that could become available to learners if they are properly skilled in the basic schooling system. What is it under energy, under ICT, under oil and gas opportunity, for example, and under tourism, so that our learners know that it's not just a particular avenue that they can go into, but that there are actually sub-avenues inside each of those high demand areas that could be serviced over time. And so to move into what it is we're actually doing in terms of activities, we're going to give you a sense of what's going on in GET and then also in FET. So in terms of GET, the focus is on natural sciences and mathematics as a start. And in that particular area, we are focusing on all three phases within the GET band. So from grade R through to grade 1 in foundation phase. Then we have a focus in intermediate phase, grade 4 to 7, as well as in our senior phase, in fact, intermediate phase, grade 4 to 6, and then our senior phase, grade 7 to 9. And the committee will notice on the slides, we have very particular foci and a methodology that we're using. One of them is the learning recovery program called Back on Track, which places a huge emphasis on our learners doing maths curriculum online, which is a support program that learners can action through an online interface. And we have 500 schools on that platform. In fact, it's closer to 800 at this point, with over 150,000 learners getting weekly exposure to mathematics exercises in an online blended environment. We also focus on CPD in terms of getting our teachers to raise their levels of competence in terms of methodology, how to teach mathematics, and create a more sustainable and enthusiastic environment for mathematics uptake by learners. And then we have other aspects such as power hours. This evening, for example, there's one that focuses on coding and robotics, where we also expose our broader education community to the indicators and the issues and the concepts that we believe our teachers and learners should be focusing on to raise the profile of mathematics. We are also involved with the JICA Institute in Japan, and last year we had a delegation that spent at least 2 weeks there. Some were there for a month, and that is coming back, and we're taking our subject advisors through that particular process with the intention that it will also become a way of doing or teaching mathematics inside our schooling system as we expose our teachers to that. And of course, we also have our Cape and Teaching Leadership Institute, which focuses on CPD in the province in terms of addressing the needs of 37,000 teachers within the system. You will find that similarly in foundation phase, we have similar foci in the senior phase, including in the senior phase, an emphasis on extra tuition around mathematics and languages. The one supports the other. The exposure to mathematics Olympiads, the short courses for teachers, and then of course we're part of a national GEC integrated project that is being piloted in the province. We also in the senior phase have Siyavula, which is a national mathematics program driven online by the DBE, and our participation rates in this province is fairly high in comparison to other provinces, and it becomes another opportunity that they have as learners to be exposed to improving their mathematics and raising the levels of competence in that particular subject. In the intermediate phase, as I said earlier, you'll see a similar methodology being used across the province. And the idea is that as learners move through the phases, the manner in which we're supporting mathematics and science development is consistent. And over time, we believe that level of consistency by focusing on the learner as well as the teacher will ultimately raise the participation levels and also learning outcomes, and then broaden the opportunities in terms of work possibility for learners as they exit the public schooling system. So in terms of science and the emphasis on exposing our learners, we have a number of issues and activities that we put in place besides the ones already mentioned, and I'd like to take you to that. So we have learners participating in grade 4 to 6 as well as 7 to 9, and then in life sciences and physics, in Olympiads that are run by the National Research Foundation as well as the South African Agency for Science and Technology Advancement. And so we're particularly proud of that collaboration. And on your left-hand side of that slide, you will get a sense of what it is our participation was like in terms of learners. And then also at the bottom end, you'll see what kind of emphasis we put on CPD with our teachers. We also take part in the Astro Quiz. And in terms of round 1, you'll get a sense across districts what the learner totals were in terms of participation and exposure. And then also we have a geoscience focus, and you may have read in the news we had 2 of our learners, for example, going on the Cape Agulhas and going to Marion Island. And so that is part of the ongoing activity that we put in place, including what you now see on this slide. We are in active participation as a province in the ESCOM Science Fair, and you'll see that there are regional expos that are held across the entire spectrum of the province. So we're in the rural areas like Stellenbosch, West Coast, and Eden, and then we have a centralized metro regional expo, which was hosted at UCT this year, and the participation was very enthusiastic from our side. Just to give you a sense of what that enthusiasm looks like, you in front of you now see a slide of the number of projects that were submitted by participants, learner participants. It totaled over 1,100 in the environments that are highlighted for you there from Cape Town to West Coast, and then also the number of learners broken down into gender and how many primary school and secondary school participants were active in that particular program, and the number of schools that were represented is indicated in the bottom end of that. What that led to is a further participation in the national event. And to give you a sense of how we did there, the Western Cape again had a fairly high profile in terms of performance at the International Science Fair this year. And again, you can see, without going into the detail, you can read how well we fared both as the Western Cape and then broken up into the various regions that participated. Again, a fair sense of achievement by learners in the Western Cape. The next slide is simply an indication of what the expo looks like when learners attend and the projects that they have to present to the panel of judges and adjudicators. This was, if I remember correctly, at the UCT event, and Saldanha, of course, was in the West Coast. Just again, confirmation that we're reaching a broad audience of learners across the spectrum of our province, and we encourage as many learners to participate in these activities. It doesn't stop there, Chairperson. We also focus on exposing our learners, especially in our marginalized communities, to creative arts and cultural activities. We know those environments can be quite depressed in terms of the ability to access these activities. And so we are very proud this year that we took over 400 grade 9 and 11 learners to the Kaka Enka as part of what we term a youth arts festival journey. And so with their teachers and officials, they were taken to the National Kunstefees and were exposed over the multiple days to a number of activities, which you will see on the slide that you're now seeing, where we were exposing learners to dance, drama, music productions, and visual art exhibitions. And then also in the previous slide, oops, my apologies, she's gone too far. The dance projection is there, and of course in this one, just confirming the level of excitement that we found there and the enthusiasm that was generated for learners wanting to take up art subjects, which often is not promoted within our schooling environments, given the resource intensity attached to many of these subjects. Then furthermore, our learners also participated in the St. Oosterfees Dialogue Project. The WCD was a major contributor to that particular process, which allowed collaboration between St. Oosterfees, and then also there was a new development this year where we participated and our learners participated in a process after drama scripts were written by playwrights in the South African industry, and then of course they were exposed to professional theatre directors and allowed to perform in some of these plays, which was also a particular highlight. We then move over to the technical and agricultural subjects, and in the GET band, just to give you a sense of what we focus on with our teachers. And so there are 4 elements to the technology focus in GET. The first is teacher training, and you get a sense under that particular heading what it is we focus on. And then in terms of subject training, where we go into the specifics, we are increasingly looking at how AI is brought inside the environment of lesson planning and resource development. It's a fairly dynamic environment at the moment, very testing and very concerning sometimes for teachers, because they're not necessarily at this point competent enough to deal with the injection of AI tools into the environment. But as a department, we're recognizing that. And as we move forward, we will be putting fundamentals in place around the manner in which we expose our teachers to the safe use of AI tools in the classroom environment. We also believe exposing our learners to competitions is another way of keeping a focus and an interest in STEMAC. And as you've seen in the preceding slides, and you'll see in 1 or 2 others, that our learners, when given the chance, are actively participating in those. And then, of course, I've mentioned the GEC and the integrated projects that we're now using. And of course, with the coding and robotics curriculum for the foundation phase now being approved, we will continue the training exercise with our teachers there, although there's a hold on the implementation given budget restraints at the moment. Then one area we are leading in terms of not only guiding the national department, but also in terms of preparing the landscape for coding and robotics in the foundation phase. As I said earlier, we have the curriculum signed off. Intermediate and senior phase will be a rollout as we move forward. And what the committee basically gets to see on this slide is where we are focusing and what we are focusing on, and also our level of success in national competitions, where we are a leading province at the moment around the promotion of coding and robotics, and our staff are continuously used by the national department to inform the ongoing development of this particular subject area. The hackathon slide is just again an indication of the level of interest that we have from our learners across the spectrum. And we're particularly pleased about the fact that the level of enthusiasm is not just defined by schools that have good resources or well-resourced, but we find even in our environments where there are minimal resources, the uptake as an interest area in coding and robotics and establishing coding and robotics clubs, there is similar enthusiasm, and it's something that we continue to push forward on. Our next area is to give you a sense of what's happening in agricultural sciences in the FET band. And on the slide you see in front of you now, there are 46 schools that offer agricultural subjects. They are split up in the way that they've indicated there. I'll just touch on 1 or 2 of them. So out of that, 28 of the schools are doing agricultural technology. 18 of the schools offer 2 agricultural subjects. 23 of the schools only 1. And then, of course, the schools highlighted, Boland, Landbou, Kayamandi, Oakdale, etc., are offering all 3 agricultural subjects in the environment at the moment, given their ability to do so. Then just a breakdown of 21 of the schools that are contributing more than 2% of the learner total to the subject area. I'm not going to go into the detail, but again, you can see there's a heavy rural focus in that Cape Winelands, Eden, and West Coast tends to dominate that space, but you also notice that in the metro, 1 or 2 schools are starting to uptake in terms of offering agricultural subjects as well. On our next slide, what are we doing as a strategy to increase enrollment? Again, FET and under the leadership of Mr. Hariprasad is spending a lot of time to promote a combination of the 2 subjects. A number of schools are now picking up agricultural management practices as well as agricultural technology. And we, of course, are putting an emphasis on it as well, given it is part of our APP targets. The districts interact with our schools around the expansion of the subject area based on the ability for them to do that and the resource environment that they find themselves in. And then, of course, as we establish new schools, we are asking them to modernize the curriculum offering to include agricultural technologies like aquaponics and hydroponics, and we have success stories in that environment as well. And then, of course, the approval of agricultural technology at school depends on existing resources, such as workshops or the necessary machinery, and we're raising that issue with the committee because, again, in our current resource constrained environment, it is going to be an area that will be a challenge for us in terms of expanding that particular focus in the province. In terms of marine sciences, again, giving our learners as broad possible exposure to the ever-changing environment that we find ourselves in and the impact of climate change. So marine sciences is a subject that is now offered in at least 8 schools. You can see the percentage contribution that each of those schools make. You'll notice also there's a heavy metro focus at this point, but we believe over time, as we move up the West Coast and also down into the Garden route, there will be schools who will be exposed to that. And on the slide that follows, you'll get a sense of what I'm saying. And those schools that are listed there are now being considered to be offering marine sciences as we move forward. Knysna, Punt, Saldanha, Veldrif, and then also in the Metro, Highlands and Ruslaza, as indicated an interest. And of course, with our SCP, our senior curriculum planner and our subject advisors and the management team of FET, they are looking at each of these applications with a view to making the subject sustainable and not just an offering that lasts for one season and then they cannot maintain it. We move on to the technical subjects. And again, on the next slide, you have a sense of the contribution of schools in that environment across the FET band. And the 12 schools that you have there listed is those schools that are contributing, or are those schools that are contributing at least 4% or more in terms of learner totals to the technical subject environment. I'm not going to go into any specific ones there unless there are questions that might come out of it. But again, you'll see the spread is very focused on the metro in terms of uptake, and we believe as we move along, we'll be able to expand that particular influence area into other schools. In terms of promoting the pipeline into vocational and occupational subjects and articulation into grade 10 to 12, we are now also offering a pilot in selected schools in grades 8 and 9, focusing on the subjects that you have there. Currently, we have 44 schools participating in the pilot across grade 8 and 9. We have almost 17,200 learners getting exposure to this environment at the moment. And the idea behind all of this is, again, to create an interest in the lower grades, then to formalize that interest in grade 8 and 9, and then through a series of pipelines articulating into FET to then stream children either into vocational occupational areas, or if they are academically inclined, that then becomes an option too, and not the only option, as is often the case currently. So in terms of expanding the technical offerings, I've mentioned 1 or 2 of them already. We are piloting the 3 streams model. The introduction of subjects in 8 and 9, as shown on the previous slide, about creating an increased enrollment and pipeline into the FET band. We are also actively now collaborating and seeking collaboration with the TVET sector, because the one thing we are aware of is that there should be a seamless transition either into FET or into TVET colleges, and we don't want to be seen to be replicating what TVET colleges are doing and then going into competition around learners, but rather see a pipeline that allows learners to move into that environment without compromising what we're doing in support of 3 streams offerings. We are also trying to actively engage and we are engaging our seaters at the moment, and a number of them are currently showing an interest in coming alongside the program. We realize that inside the department, we may not have the financial resources to do all of this on our own. And so we're actively seeking collaboration, not only with TVET, but also the sector education and training authorities in the various environments. Again, the pilot started in 2022 with 23 schools, has now been expanded to 44. It is a small base that we're working off, but as the committee can see, there is an attempt within the department to make sure that we grow, even though we have an environment that is resource constrained at the moment. In terms of the focus on mathematics and physical sciences in the FET band, two comments we'd just like to bring to the committee's attention. The first is that we are making steady progress in terms of increasing participation and performance in the FET band. We are under pressure from our national department because they believe the province can do much better, and we are committed to taking that journey, and that's why we have this constant focus from foundation phase right into FET on not only literacy, but also on mathematics. And then I'm sure you will know too that in the NSC exams, the province does consistently perform well in terms of getting our learners into those top 3 positions for either physics or for mathematics. Then on the next slide is just to highlight to the committee what the quality of passes look like at grade 12 over the period 2018 to 2023. You'll notice we've got a virus between 2020 and 2021. The COVID pandemic impacted those performance levels, but if you look at the lower end, 76% in 2018 of our learners were getting a 30% pass rate. There was slight depression over a number of years, including the impact of COVID, but you'll notice that that number is now 75%. But if you look at the numbers above that in terms of the percentages, the pass rates at 40% and at 50% and at 60% is lifting post the COVID pandemic, and we recognize the promise of those results, and we believe if we're consistent over the next couple of years, we should see the quality of the result lifting even further, which would of course mean that the low end result will drop off because more learners will be achieving above 30%. The other slide that we're placing emphasis on is the number of learners who achieve distinctions in mathematics. And again, you'll see when the pandemic hit, there was a drop off into 2022, but there's been a rise last year in line with the performance in mathematics, which had lifted by almost 8%. And we're expecting that those gains will be consolidated over the next couple of years. And we hope that in the next year or two, we'll surpass the 2020 figure of 10% of learners achieving distinctions in mathematics. In terms of the averages, what makes us confident about this is, again, you'll see a fairly seesaw pattern of the average percentage achievement in mathematics in grade 12 from 2018 to 2023. But again, at the time when the pandemic hit, you'll see the drop off because of learning loss and the loss of teaching time. And then now that we've consolidated and we have a learning loss recovery program and we have the focus on mathematics in the province, as well as a national emphasis on mathematics, we are pleased at the way the average percentage for mathematics lifted from 2022 to 2023. On the next slide, we get to the district results and distinctions in physical sciences. Again, the bulk of our learners, bar 1 or 2 districts, or at least 80% of our learners are achieving 30%, which is a sub-minimum benchmark. We are not pegging that as where we're trying to maintain achievement in physical sciences, but it's an important indicator in that learners are able to pass the subject. And then, of course, on the right-hand side, you see the pass percentages at 40 and 50%, and we will continue to see that we can lift that over time, given the departmental emphasis on this particular subject as well. On the extreme right, you see the distinctions per district that were achieved last year. Then in terms of our future plans, as we wrap up, Chairperson, we again are currently at the behest of our EXCO and our MEC. We are busy putting in a framework at the moment. It's being driven by the DDG, Mr. Lauriston, and it's quite advanced in terms of its formulation. And so we are putting in a framework for the implementation of schools of specialization. There is a comprehensive analysis at the moment happening within this particular department, taking into account the landscape within the province in terms of economic activity and skills alignment, as mentioned in our earlier slides. We are talking to infrastructure planning about how we roll out schools and how we plan schools in terms of ensuring that the environments we now create in terms of new schools are able to service the broader community that is surrounding that particular school, and especially if there's industry in that environment, that we also make sure that we place our schools in environments which allows that kind of articulation to happen. And then, of course, we believe that Schools of Skills is a vehicle to promote talent, and we certainly have lots of talent in our environment. We have a provincial skills competition, which is held at Bellville Technical School the last couple of years. And if you've had the opportunity to be exposed to that, we did not put slides into this presentation, but it's wonderful to see again across the spectrum of schools, our learners are actively participating and achieving in that environment. And we have been asked tentatively to host a national skills competition next year inside our province. That's a conversation we still need to take up because we need to talk about how it is funded. But again, it is a recognition of the fact that our learners do excellently when they get to these national competitions, and we're keen to enlarge that footprint. If this particular national competition helps us, we certainly will have a serious look at it. And then lastly on the slide, please be assured that we are in constant conversation with industry partners, and we're also using Wesgro to assist us in this environment to align our dominant industry sectors so that we can generate the skills that is demanded for future participation in the Western Cape economy and by extension, the South African economy. In conclusion, Chairperson, just to summarize, we are making steady progress in promoting STEAMAC, and we hope you've been able to see that over the slide deck that we've just exposed you to. And then please just also note that the gains are slow but steady, but we now have in our macro environment fairly dark clouds at the moment in terms of the current fiscal austerity measures, and we believe that there's going to be more pressure on ourselves to keep the momentum of the program going by involving potentially other stakeholders, and we are open to that environment because we do recognize that the current austerity measures affecting this department is going to dampen the expansion of the program if we do not open ourselves up to getting involved with the CETAs and with TVET colleges and potentially industry at large. Chairperson, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benjamin. That has been a most enlightening presentation that you've provided to the committee. So thank you to you and the team for the work that you put in there. I think before I open up for questions and comments from the committee, some of the thoughts that go through my mind would then be, how can committee then assist the work that you are doing, and how better do we publicize the progress that is being made, because I think it does help to provide some level of inspiration to our learners that there is in fact quite a broad spectrum of opportunity for them to go out there. And then I had the privilege of having a meeting with the chairman and CEO of one of the large international contact center companies who are doing work in certainly in Cape Town and in George. And one of the questions that he posed to me is the extent to which we are equipping our young learners to move into the type of space that they are operating in, and obviously the fast moving advances that we are seeing in data analytics and seeing in artificial intelligence. And I think you have also mentioned in your presentation that as the world moves and technology moves into bigger and newer areas, obviously it also creates pressure on the whole teaching environment. But that probably is some bit of background. And I'm going to open up then to committee members for their comments and questions, so that we can try and interrogate the topic a little bit further. Whose hand's up first? I see Member Kasim's hand is up. And then Member Ferlin Christians, and then Member Memory Boyson. Followed by Member Windvogel then after that. So I think we can go in that order.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, my question is, thank you very much for the presentation as well. My question is based on the 5 or 6 schools that, in terms of marine science, that will be implemented there. I just wanted to get an idea as to, or maybe I missed it in your presentation, as to how those specific schools were identified for marine science as an additional subject or program. And then also, while we on the topic of marine science, has the department or do the department intend on bringing the specific programs or subjects to schools on coastal lines as well? Because I know I visited Saldanha, and on the coastal line there, and a lot of the fishermen, not only the older fishermen, but also youth as well, was still in school. There was some sense or some call for, educational programs, not only relating to fishing, but also marine science. So is there any plans to roll out these programs in schools on coastal lines as well across the province? Thank you.
Thanks, Member Kasim. Member Ferlin Christian, sorry.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much. Thank you. I also want to say thank you for the presentation. Just 2 things, Chair. The one thing is that I know, I'm just looking at, I think it was slide 43 about the distinctions when it comes to mathematics. And Metro East is always, a struggling region. I want to know, is there plans? What is the plans to, because for the many years that I'm serving on education, Metro East always was the region that performed not so good when you look at the other regions. So there's a 38% pass rate there, or if we can just say what's happening in Metro East, and is there plans to improve those statistics in Metro East. The other thing for me, Chair, and I welcome, we must understand, as it was explained, the fiscal constraints that we have as a province and as a country. But the question that I want to, and you cannot roll this out, you need to look at the budget and then roll it out according to the budget. But the department can just explain to us, the benchmarks and goals that they put in place. I heard the gentleman said, 5, 10, 15 years, but this turnaround, how often do they look at, is there turnaround? Because with the misalignment of skills, so how does the department foresee this as a turnaround strategy, and when will we actually see results? No, I'm talking about the critical misalignment of skills. When will we be able to see results, and what is the measures put in place to say this is working, we need to extend, this is not working? When does the department look at these things? Because I think I'm very excited when I hear, but also, you must also look at, like I said, the financial constraints. So I do understand that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Memory Boyson.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, this is indeed a very inspiring presentation, and I want to say thank you to the officials. Chairperson, in the agricultural field, Dr. Meyer kept on saying that there are not enough agricultural colleges in the province. And my question is, does the department share that sentiment? And with all these innovative subjects in the agricultural field, would this then be the beginning as a feeder system in case Dr. Meyer's dreams get realized? Thank you.
Thank you, Member Boyson. Yes, certainly. I know that Outeniqua High School has made their forays into offering agriculture already. So it'd be interesting to hear how that progress is being replicated elsewhere in the province. Member Windvogel.
Thank you so much, Chair, and my apologies for being for joining late. A prior meeting ran longer than it was expected. Chair, allow me first to also welcome the progress or feedback on the progress made in implementing the STEAM MEC by the WCED. Chair, my question on slide 4. We know that the unemployment and social inequalities and the increase in number of youth who are not in education or employment or training are disproportionately affecting Coloureds and African communities in the Western Cape. So these issues, particularly in the context of the province, socioeconomic disparities, seems to exacerbate educational challenges for these groups. And in light of this, I am really interested in understanding how the Western Cape Education Department defines equality in education within the framework of the STEAMEC initiative. Specifically, what target measures are being implemented to ensure that learners from disadvantaged socioeconomic backgrounds, especially those from Coloured and African communities, have equitable access to these critical educational opportunities. And then also, how does the WSD ensure that these efforts translates into tangible, lasting outcomes for the youth most at risk of exclusion from such opportunities? Then, Chairperson, on slide 9, STEAMEC education activities. Can the team provide details or statistics on the racial and quintile breakdown of learners participating in STEAMEC subjects? And what steps is the department taking to address any disparities observed in these figures? To put it simply, what is the racial breakdown of learners participating in STEAMEC subjects, and what is the breakdown per quintile? Then lastly, Chair, I think on the member Kasim covered me on the science issue, marine science issue, but on the mathematics, while the uptake of mathematics in the foundation and intermediate phase appears to be relatively high, there seems to be a significant drop-off by the time learners reach grade 12, with relatively low participation in the matriculation level mathematics. Can the department provide insight into where and why this drop-off occurs? Specifically, at what stage of the education system are learners opting out of mathematics, and what factors contribute to these trends? And are there specific challenges or barriers that the department is aware of that may be affecting learners' continuation in mathematics through to grade 12? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Member Windvogel. I wonder at this stage we can probably allow department to give some response, and then we could move to a second round of questioning and comments thereafter, if that will assist the process.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm going to ask Mr. Lauriston, sorry, Mr. Lauriston, I was just going to say, I'm going to ask you just to coordinate. Just to mention to Mr. Lauriston that Mr. Hariprasad will address Member Kasim's question,
yes,
as well as Member Christian's question. I'm sure that you are going to enjoy talking about the maths question that Member Windvogel spoke to. Around the stats, we will have to provide that to you because it was not in this presentation, so we may have to give written feedback on that. But I hand over to you, Mr. Larson.
No, I think you've covered that, Mr. Benjamin. Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity. I just want to highlight with regards to the mathematics, and I'll start with Member Windvogel's question on the mathematics participation. Member Windvogel, you just have to remember that all learners in the GET band, that is grade 1 to grade 9, have to do mathematics. So everybody's participating in mathematics. It's a choice in grade 10 where we either choose mathematical literacy or mathematics, pure mathematics, or technical mathematics that we have in the FET grade 10, 11, and 12. So one of the challenges that we do have is also a condonation dispensation, that there's no clear standard within, not standard, but a requirement for a learner in the grade 4s to 9 to actually achieve adequate outcome in mathematics within the system, and as a requirement for that learner to progress to the next grade. So that is one of the challenges. However, I've always indicated that we cannot use a policy to define quality teaching and learning. So we are having definite measures and interventions in place to ensure that the quality of teaching in mathematics is solid from the foundation phase, like we have with our reading strategy as well, and then build through the system to ensure that we have clear plans to respond adequately to our systemic results annually, and that then also will contribute to the intake in the FET band. However, with that said, many of our learners, and I think one of the things that we're also trying to do is to establish career clubs at our schools to enlighten people and share information on what are the possibilities for actually continuing your studies or the world of work, and the importance of having this by bringing external people into the system and actually creating a vision with our children in certain areas to make them understand that there is a value in actually doing mathematics to excel in life. With that said, it is still far from where we would like it to be. But we definitely are pushing to ensure that specifically, and our target audience will be our quintiles 1 to 4 schools, to make sure that the uptake in the participation rate increases in those schools to actually bring about the transformation that we would like to see in the system. We do have the quintile breakdowns, and as Mr. Benjamin indicated, we will definitely share that with you. And then, to make sure that we have a better understanding of what that is in the system. I then also think that the one on Member Boyson on the agricultural fields and whether this is an opportunity to get into the colleges. We have to remember that the colleges has a high financial burden. But what we are doing, we are promoting certain subjects across the system to ensure that there's a better understanding of the possibilities, because I think many times it's about educating people of what the possibilities are in agriculture and not just say agriculture as such. And I think that is what we are trying to promote across the province in different schools, to say there are alternatives to what we accept as normal agricultural opportunities for our learners, to actually make them aware of what there is in the system as well. So I hand over to Mr. Haripasa to respond to Member Kasim's and Member Christian's questions. And then I'll also then come back in to give some more information on Metro East if required. Thank you.
Good afternoon, honorable members and colleagues. Yeah, look, I think the question around the issue of marine sciences and the selection of the schools, at the moment, we also looking at, like Mr. Benjamin mentioned, we're looking at spatial planning. There's 14 ports or harbors in the Western Cape, and we're trying to promote the ocean economy. And to a large extent, we have to be very cautious about the expansion, because one of the critical factors is the issue of the availability of a teacher, one that has interest in it or has some qualification to be able to be schooled to become a marine science teacher. So the selection of the schools is based at the moment on the availability of an educator, which is critically important because you can't reskill a teacher on marine sciences very easily. So we're looking at where the capacity lies, and therefore you'll see schools like the one in Athlone, and another one in the townships is where we're picking up teachers that have the interest in it. And we in the Western Cape has 8 schools. We're the highest in the country. In fact, we got the most number of learners. And we're fortunate that we were in a position to be able to appoint a senior curriculum planner who's an expert in marine sciences. Over and above that, the whole issue of the marine economy, we're trying to promote it in a particular way where we want to introduce other subjects, including not only marine science and the agricultural management practice that focus on aquaponics, etc. But we also want to look at maritime economics and some of the other skill sets that are required to promote the ocean economy. And there's a whole lot of them. So the plan is bigger, more sort of ambitious, but obviously we need to be working in a very cautious manner on how we expand. So we take note of the comment, but I think in terms of the issue of related to the other question, in terms of the fiscal constraints cannot roll out according to the budget requirements. Here again, we wanting to be careful. And at the moment, I just want to indicate that we have been very prominently engaging with the National Department to influence their thinking. And what we've done most recently, and you'll see in the most recent engagement that will be happening at HEDCOM next week, is that we're trying to increase the interpretation understanding of what vocational subjects we currently have in the schooling system. Subjects like all of these services subjects, tourism, hospitality studies, home economics, the subjects like CAT and IT, other subjects in the schooling system at the moment where there's a practical component, all of the art subjects. We're wanting that all those subjects to not only be falling into the academic pathway, but to show the evidence that they actually fall into the vocational stream that leads directly into post-school opportunities, including entrepreneurship and the world of work. So that will be a major strategic shift in terms of how the department will be able to use that information to be able to reposition our schools to become more responsive, to show the evidence of how we align the skills and competencies to meet the expectations of what the industry requires. Incidentally, 2 other subjects that are included in that list is CAT and IT, computer applications technology and information technology. So you can see the evidence of that. And part of the initiative is to also, to what extent is the National Department having the appetite to be able to introduce other subjects that are examined by other examining bodies, vendor-specific subjects, etc. We're trying to promote the understanding from a policy perspective of how we can bring these subjects into schools. And I think very importantly, the point that Mr. Benjamin mentioned, we need to take note of the articulation into higher education, into FET colleges and institution of higher learning. I think the concern that the one raised around the issue of the dropout and significant drop from grade 10 to 12 in mathematics, there is another systemic challenge that we're facing on that matter. To a large extent, it's attributed to what's happening in higher education and access to higher education programs, including access to bursaries, etc. If you look at what is happening in many instances, higher education institutions actually have a point scoring mechanism to enable learners to be able to access certain faculties. And where much is not required, learners that got a distinction in mathematics, in mathematical literacy, for example, gets a high score. And therefore they qualify for entrance and also qualify for the bursaries, etc. So that's another systemic issue. And there's a mismatch to what extent and the number of learners that will actually participate in higher education programs where mathematics is absolutely essential and compared to other programs where it is not. And herein lies another reason why many of our learners that have the potential to take mathematics are moving to match lit because they're wanting to make sure they benefit from the options and opportunities that are existing for them to access higher education. It's a systemic challenge, and I'm hoping that the honorable members will take note of that. I think we covered the issue. I just want to say that we are conscious of the fact that we, to a large extent, are trying to promote as far as possible access to many of the skills-based programs in our disadvantaged communities. And as you can see, wherever there's capacity and wherever we're injecting, to a large extent, is focusing on the African and colored communities. I thank you.
Chairperson, before Mr. Lauriston comes in on the Metro East mathematics outlook, I want to give him sufficient time. I just want to touch on the question raised by member Christians around how long will this take. Let me say that we cannot definitively say it's going to be 5 or 10 years. What we can definitively say is that we are working on a strategy that is trying to be as all-encompassing as possible, including that we have to speak to industry, we have to speak to other government departments, we have to speak to TVET colleges, we have to speak to HEIs, and all of those forums are currently being explored actively by the department under Mr. Lauriston, so that we have a coherent strategy before we start milestoning around how we're going to achieve that. So once that particular conceptual framework has been put in place, and like I said earlier, it's fairly advanced in terms of its preparation, and it is signed off by our EXCO, then the milestoning should happen. In the interim, the ongoing development and expansion of the program, despite these fiscal constraints, will happen in line with the capacity of the department to do that. And then the last one I want to touch on is member Boyson, who wanted to know about MEC Meyer and whether he's happy with what we're doing, or potentially if we're supporting the push from agriculture side. Let me say there's again an active engagement with the Department of Agriculture. We have lines drawn to Elsenburg, for example, where our teachers are being exposed to upskilling by Elsenburg as a facility. One of the things that has been very successfully done over the last couple of years is the exposure to drones and the use of drone technology, and also the learner participation in agricultural competitions or competitions run in the agricultural space. We are making sure that the learners get exposed in that environment as well. And the conversation remains a strong one in terms of realizing that we cannot do that on our own. We actually have to move alongside the Department of Agriculture as we build out our agricultural focus inside our schools. I'd like to hand to Mr. Lauriston, who wants to deal with the issue of mathematics in Metro East.
Thank you, Mr. Benjamin. Chairperson, I think with regards to Member Christian's request on mathematics and Metro East, I think I visited I watched the district this year, and they made concerted efforts to actually up the performance with specifically in mathematics and physical science. So I'm actually looking forward to the results. I will be very disappointed if they don't achieve it with the efforts that they've put into in actually giving us the results or showing us what can happen with a focused and approach towards improving the mathematics and the physical science in that area. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I'll have to come back in January to actually confirm the result there. But I'm actually looking forward there. But however, with that said, that is for the grade 12s, but they also build in sustainability into their programs. So they take the learners from grade 10, the mathematics learners, and push and support them from grade 10 to grade 12 in ensuring that there's no drop out during that period within the mathematics and physical sciences subjects there. So as I've indicated, I'm honestly looking forward to see how their efforts and their focus will result into an improved outcome for us at the end of the year. I just want to also indicate to Member Kasim is that I think marine science is now in their 3rd year of implementation, and obviously the growing pains is now actually easing out. And as soon as that has been eased out, I think a greater scale of implementation can be promoted But I think when we started off, it was a trial and error within the country because we were the province that actually introduced marine sciences here. And then we had to develop the curriculum. And I think it's now in its third year. And I think the stability that the subject has reached will allow us also to actually move forward within that space. I think Member Winvogel's question about our tangible measures to improve about quality education and what do we define that to be in specific areas. I think it remains a challenge, and I think Mr. Benjamin also highlighted that we will definitely have to look at that it will take time. However, what are we doing now already? So what we are doing, Member Windvogel, we are mapping our schools in specific areas because one of the things that we have to look at to change the trajectory of our learners and our schools is subject choices and offerings within schools. So what we do find, schools in a certain community all offer exactly the same subject. So there's no alternative. Reason for that is the governing bodies and the school staff determine what they are offering, and they then apply this in the community. Sometimes, I have to admit, it could be to have contribute to a pass rate and not necessarily the opportunities that is there. However, we are now busy mapping this to make sure that we understand what the offerings are in all our schools and then start negotiating with the schools within the same community to change that offerings and then in that way offer a better spread of subjects throughout the community for our schools. That's the one part that we are doing. Coupled with that, we're also looking at, with the spatial analysis, that we look at the different industries that we have there. And we've also put ourselves into the skills space. So we're looking at our TVET colleges to have a different pathway, because what we do realize with the fiscal situation is we do need partnerships. One of the partnerships, as Mr. Benjamin also alluded to, and Mr. Haripasat, is our TVET colleges. They already have articulation of certain subjects into their space. And I think we need to optimize that in the way that we actually allow our learners to choose different pathways in our system within the 3-stream model. And I think once we have cleared out that as well, and we bring in industry into our schools to actually assist us with specific skills, because we also have to acknowledge we don't know all the modern skills that are out there, and we also don't know how machinery operates and how it functions, and we need those skills to come into our schools to actually make what we are offering relevant to our learners. So we're also busy with that process. And I think the G4J platform allows for good engagement on that and also to source the relevant role players into our system. Just for the noting of the committee as well, it's easy to identify a subject, but if there's no pipeline of producing teachers for that subject, then that is another challenge for us. So we also engage in higher education as well as our TVET colleges to see what the framework looks like for us to produce teachers for these subjects. So it's yes to say we would like to have these subjects, but secondly, do we have teachers for this subject and where do they qualify? So that is another area and dimension that we are looking in to actually make this space solid so that we know what we are building on. And I want to just end off by saying we have to realize that we need partnerships in this. And I think this came through very strongly from Mr. Benjamin as well as from Mr. Haripasat. Our partnerships in actually making this work for our children, specifically the most vulnerable children, is of utmost importance. So we will definitely engage an array of people to actually assist us. Sometimes it's just for thinking, but other times it's more for the skills and also the experience that they can bring to us, understanding better how we can make education more relevant to our children. Thank you, Chairperson and Mr. Benjamin. I don't know if you would like to add.
No, I'm covered, DDG. And back to the Chairperson.
Thank you very much, DDG and Mr. Benjamin. And and your team for your responses so far. I think, some of these comments that you've now just been making, DDG, sort of has gone along with some of my thinking of that importance of building those partnerships with the various economic sectors, as well as the business role players within that space that could possibly then form some form of an advisory council or an advisory body that the department could then communicate with and collaborate with, and to understand where those needs are and how one is in fact going to generate that additional level of funding to support some of the areas that the education space may find difficult in dealing with, given the fiscal constraints that we currently have. Because, I think it's, what came through in the presentation is also the amount of, let's call it, enthusiastic type of area where learners are able to participate online in doing in the maths and in the whole area of coding and robotics and the science fair. I look, for instance, at Eden, where it looks like the numbers have perhaps been a little bit lower in this year compared to what they were for a few years ago, or a year or two ago, and how we can keep up that level of enthusiasm. And I think there is that need to involve the economic sectors and the business sector in that they also start giving pointers as to the type of subjects and what our learners should be prepared for in entering that job market. So I think that is an observation that I have. I'm just looking at committee. Are there any further questions or comments that we can be posing to the department? I see Member Windvogel's hand.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is on the expanding marine sciences. I just wanted to check with the department, how is the department collaborating with the two oceans? Let me rephrase my question. Are they collaborating with the two oceans quarries to support the expansion of marine science education? And are planned activities or resources aimed at strengthening this offering and ensuring its sustainability? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honourable Windvogel. Are there any more hands? If there aren't any, then we can, I think the department could perhaps just deal with that and then make some concluding remarks there. And then, on that basis, then we can probably conclude on this briefing. I think it has been a very valuable briefing and giving us a very good perspective of the work that is being undertaken. And obviously, this is not, it's a very dynamic environment, and certainly a whole area and the whole field that just adds to the many working parts within the education department that require constant attention on how we are able to deal with the massive challenges that we have in producing learners who can embark on careers and further education after their school years have been completed. Over to you, Mr. Lauriston.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I want to assure the committee that, or Mrs. Windvogel specifically, that the subject was born at the Two Oceans Aquarium. They were duly involved in the development of our curriculum and the experimentation of it, even though it was not a fully fledged or registered subject yet. So yes, they are involved, and I think they still do practical engagements with the schools that are offering marine sciences. But I also want to highlight to the committee that marine sciences is not the only sciences in the marine environment that are at offer. There are others as well, and one of it is that we do conduct examinations in nautical sciences. Very low uptake still, but there are other subjects as well that we would like to promote amongst our learners. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Fine, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Lauriston, and to your team in being with us today. I think we highly appreciate the presentation that has been provided to us, and we certainly wish you well in these constant efforts that need to be undertaken and need to be supported in ensuring that the STEMAC programs are continued and that they are grown and that they are built out and that we have more and more learners who are able to participate in taking these various subjects. And so we really wish you well in the efforts that you have undertaken and that you're constantly working with. So thank you very much for that. And on that basis, we can then excuse the department and so that they can continue with their other tasks for the day. Thank you very much.
Chairperson, may I thank the committee?
Yes, for sure.
Chairperson, on behalf of the group that are here and those who are not here as well, I think we really appreciate the engagement because we are continuously on a path of improvement. And I think once we start working, any person develops tunnel vision. And sometimes it is just good to engage others to actually enlighten us and to open up that vision again into different areas. So we do appreciate the manner in which this engagement took place this afternoon, and we really appreciate the insights that were shared with us to look in different areas and differently on what we are doing. So from my side to you, as well as the committee members, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we'll just give the department, the officials, a moment to exit the program. It looks like that they have all exited, and in effect, then we can continue with the workings of the committee and our agenda for the day, which includes we've now concluded on this item on the briefing, and we can now move on to the other items on the agenda, which will firstly deal with the consideration and adoption of the draft committee report on the annual report of the Western Cape Education Department. And then we've got a number of draft minutes to deal with, and then a number of resolutions and actions that we may need to deal with thereafter. So thank you very much for your participation up to this stage. I see Honourable Windvogel's hand.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I just want clarity. meeting, are we not doing any resolutions on this presentation? I just need clarity on that. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, certainly. We will be dealing with resolutions on that. If the committee would like to deal with those resolutions or those actions at this stage, I think we can do that.
Yeah. If I may, Chair.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Yeah. No, I really want to understand, Chair, the performance of learners in mathematics and physical science, a type of breakdown by race and quanta. And so if the department can just, yeah, and what is the number of matric learners who will be writing mathematics and physical science exams? And how does this compare to the number from the class of 2023? That's my request, Chair. Thanks.
Okay, so that's a comparative for the years 23 to 24, and what would seem to be, if they are broken down into the, call it by, I imagine you would like to, would you like to see by district, that is a basis that we then try and deal with it on like that?
Yes, Chair, and also measures, what measures are being taken to support and to improve
and to make those improvements. I'm obviously sort of speaking out loud here, and I think procedural officer can probably just confirm that just now, and then I see member Christian's hand.
Yeah, yes, Chair. Thank you. I just want to latch onto that. The question that I had was the problem that we had in the Metro East underperforming with mathematics. Maybe we can just. So they said that they have put plans in place, and the gentleman said he'll be very excited to see the results. So if we can see the results when it comes out, it said somewhere in January we'll see the results. But I think we must, because I know Metro East is struggling a bit. So if we can just see the, maybe it will gel with a member Winvogel's thing, then we can just add in, because they've got specific interventions in the Metro East, and if those interventions have the desired results, I think that is what I want to see. And then, of course, the results after the fact, children has written the exam, and then after the fact, what is the results, what's the improvement. So I think it gels with member Windvogel wants in the different areas, and the I think she said the struggling schools and all of that. But Metro East is one of our struggling areas, and so I don't know. Maybe the procedural officer can just put it in there. But I would want to see the results of Metro East after the interventions, and did it work or didn't work, and then we know where we are at when it comes to struggling schools in the Metro East region. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, I think certainly we could work that into it. I think what, to me, just to add to some of the conclusions or the resolutions, is probably to request the department to strongly consider the introduction of some form of sounding board, formal sounding board that they have with representatives of the various economic sectors who play important roles within the Western Cape, and who would be the future employers. So in that subset or that discussion, obviously then also include the big employing type of bodies or companies to add their input to the type of curriculum or the subjects that are required within the offering that learners are able to give. And I think that is it's also important there to assist the department then in starting to prepare and to recruit teachers with those skills and to be able to establish those the various curricula, and also then to I think that body could also assist in providing some of that level of funding that is going to be needed to provide what I'm calling the level of enthusiasm for learners then to participate, whether it be in youth arts festivals or the maths and science Olympiads and the various areas of coding, robotics, and all of these various other subjects, including agriculture, that is needed. So that I think that would, as a committee, we should probably then encourage them to set up that sort of advisory body if that carries support of the committee. I don't know, are there any other comments coming from members of committee on resolutions or actions that we should be proposing having come out of this briefing? I see procedural officer's hand is up.
Hi, Chair. Thank you so much. I just want to get clarity on Member Christian's request. Could I request from the department the school improvement plans, which will have the interventions set out by each school and together with the district? And on that basis, the members can see how Metro East have Metro East has performed in the intervention.
Yes, certainly. I think what, look, I think what we got to do, that so that the department can provide a suitable response then on those level of improvements, because obviously if we that they try and just do that on the basis there, because we probably don't want a result for 200-300 schools or however many schools there are in per district, but hopefully just a consolidated one per district will probably provide us with a necessary picture, hopefully, and perhaps just indicate what else needs to be done from an improvement point of view. Member Christians?
You won't want to look away. Chair, no, I think it's fine. I think let's do that. Let's see if we get the desired outcome with the school improvement plan. But like I said, it's now for many years that Metro East has been struggling, and with Metro East struggling, I know that they have made certain interventions to improve the outcomes. But I would like to see the outcome after the exams, and if there's an improvement when it comes to the mathematics and science, especially. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Any further comments there, or have we covered on this briefing?
I'm happy with those recommendations, Chair.
Thank you, Member Boyson. So I think we can take that as being unanimous then, and then we can probably then move on, and I'll hand over to Ms. Hassan Musa then to just work through the draft report that we have on the annual report. And I think we do take that as being read, and there's a good summary has been provided in terms of the overview and the key points of the discussion that took place. And then there were a number of resolutions that we took at that time, and also a request for information. So I think if that then deals with that, then we can probably just see how we conclude on that. Procedural officer.
Chair, is the report visible?
Yes, it is visible. Yes. I think if you could just move through the various pages there, and if there are any comments that need to be added. And I think the key points covered a fairly wide range of topics, and they, I think, are fairly well included then in the whole set of resolutions and request for information. Okay, I think we can move on to next page there. Okay, have we everybody happy? Do we have proposers and seconders? If everybody's happy. I see Member Stevens. Okay, anybody else to second Member Stevens? Member Boyson.
Chairperson, I so second the proposal.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, our next item on the agenda deals with draft minutes for 15 October. Ms. Hassan Musa.
Chair, I think it's showing now.
Yes, it is showing. I see it's 15 October. Yes. So 15 October, if we just roll on, that was our meeting on the annual report. Okay, so I think that should, we should be fully covered there on what we have. In that, I see Member Boyson's hand.
Chairperson, I so propose.
Thank you very much. Seconder.
Second, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Christian, for seconding. So I think there we've dealt with that. Thank you very much, committee. We then move on to item 4, which are the draft minutes for 10 September 2024. So that is what we've got before us that has now been flighted. And this then deals with the discussion and interesting discussion and a presentation that we had on donor or investor funds being applied or being sought to assist in the building of new schools, and how one then deals with the cuts that are taking place with regard to our budget. So that is what's before us. So there, we are now moving on to page 2. And we also requested information there and resolutions. are we happy to conclude on that committee?
Yes, Chair, propose.
Thank you, Member Christian, for proposing. Do we have a seconder there?
I second, Chairperson, Member Boyson.
Thank you, Member Boyson, and Member Stevens also seconds that. So I think that deals with those items. Procedural officer, do we have anything further there? I see Member Walters was wanting to turn on his mic.
No, Chair, that was a lazy fingers.
I see. Okay, thank you. Right. Yes, procedural officer.
Chair, I have nothing further, just that the World Bank presentation is next week, and then following that is the Western Cape adjustments appropriation on WCD on the 29th, which would be the last meeting of the committee.
For calendar 2024.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so yes, certainly we've got a presentation by the World Bank on their education sector analysis that they've done for the department, and I believe that will also give us as a committee a good insight into the work that is being undertaken and the advice that they are providing to the department. So I think that's excellent. And then, as indicated, then we move to the appropriation bill at the end of the month. So I think that is really bringing us to the end of our business for the day. I don't know if there are any comments or everybody's ready to have a late lunch. I see no hands, I see no excitement. So thank you very much, committee members and officials, for being with us today, and enjoy your day further. Thank you very much for attending and participating in this standing committee meeting. Accordingly, I am then adjourning the meeting at 14:37 today. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chair. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair.